morning, Tone Dan here. I had a friend of mine ask me a question about removing some green content around the hair there and getting a soft selection knockout of the background. So here's what I typically do, and depending on the art, I might need to work a little harder or a little less on it, but in the RGBs, I'll select all, copy, and I work a lot in channels, so I'll paste here. And right away, what this does is the copy and paste removes this white background and leaves all the color data as grayscale. Essentially, a channel is a grayscale, individual grayscale channel or selection. And so to create a mask, there's a couple things I do. First, I'll duplicate this so I got the original, and then I come in with the burn tool on feathering. I'll have to pull up my Photoshop so you can see I'm using the feather tool and burn that in. So I'm creating a mask. The more you come out here to the edge, it starts darkening that, and the solidity creeps up out further outside and creates more of a harder edge, and I don't want to do that as easily. I want that outer edge to be a little softer. And I reduce the brush down, come in tighter, and you see how I'm getting that soft edge on there. And you see how the burn tool only really burns I got it set to shadows right now, right here, and it's burning all my dark spots even darker and not touching my highlights as much. But the more I go over a light area, the more it fills it in. So just give me an idea. There's a couple other ways to do it, but this way is more precise, more controlled, because I'm doing it manually. And I'll show you the other options using curves here in a moment. This is, could be considered more of an artistic thing where you have an artist doing this for you. I don't know if he needs this part over here, but I'll leave that alone. And I burn along the edge again, fading that, so that when you blow up on it, you can see it's still a soft edge out here. And sometimes I even paint with like the brush tool. So it's got a feathered edge, but it's not burning and filling, so I'm literally painting in here now and creating this softer edge still, but I'm coming up along the side. And so for a lot of you who are not artists, you probably want some other much quicker method where you don't have to rely on artistic skills. And there are some other techniques for that as well. And you see I've got the brush tool on right now, and the opacity is very low, so I'll make that more solid. What this is going to do is give you a soft edge selection. Like if you had wispy hair, then you would be using maybe some other options. This one's it just should have a fuzzy edge. Maybe up here you can let it fade to the shirt a little bit more. This would create a nice soft. I'll even decrease this brush a little bit more here, so I'm not putting down too much black too quickly. And I can just kind of, in calculated placements, airbrush a little bit more in here. just all about being intentional with what you're doing there. So I'm going to get this a little more smoother in the transition. Yeah. Now bring up my solidity again and just airbrush paint this in, fill it solid. Now when you're creating masks, it gets a little tricky sometimes because when you're doing this, it might appear on your monitor that every area is solid, but if you use the levels, it would be Command L or Control L, and you adjust that, you can see that there are some areas that I did not get good coverage in. So you also see the negative effects. If you just adjust the slider, you get that hard, jagged edge. And this file is at low resolution, so it's purely only for educational purposes. I would improve the resolution on this. But so what I want to do is take this burn tool again and just go over some areas on the inside. Make sure I got a good solid area. This way you don't have any background popping through your face image. There's a little bit up here at the top left. Reduce it down to come in a little tighter. There was another area, I think, down here. So, just taking this mask. One more little tip that I would like to try and do to make that a little softer is just take the blur tool and soften those edges just a little bit. This helps remove the little pixelated residue you get left over from low resolution files. Helps give you a nice soft edge. And now that you've got a little softer edge here, and let's say this collar of her jacket, you might want to change that to the dodge tool and eat away at those outer edges there and make that a little more solid. So you have more of a tighter, focused, not blurred edge. Same with this one over here. Maybe along these collars here. And what this will do is create a sharp knockout. See, I'm going back and forth between the two, and you can see how it makes more of a sharper edge on the garment and just a fuzzy edge on the hair and the cheek side here. So now I'll take my selection, hold down the Command or Control key, click on that channel. That selects every individual pixel. So all these little pixels out here are actually getting selected, but the marching ants don't show anything beyond below 50%. So like that's 49% right there. And if you read your icon, your color numbers, hang that over, you can see it actually is 49%. And then this one is 59. So that's where it jumps. That's why you only see a selection that goes down so far. Now, what you can do is you get a double click on this and activate it and make it an actual layer. So I'll keep my original. And right now, if I painted, it's on, the selection is on the inside. So I don't want to delete that because that'll leave that. What I want to do is inverse my selection, Command or Control Shift I, and that reverses the selection. Now you can hit delete and we'll see how that looks on a different background color. still got that fuzzy green area. So I see what he was talking about. So what he's wanting to do is like remove a little bit of highlight on here and stuff. So then I would alter my mask more, compensating and making that more accurate. But to remove the gray or the green here on this outer edge of the hair, that's a bit of a different trick. So let me first clean this up down here at the bottom. A couple things you can do. You can work in here on this artwork manually and eat away at that with the eraser tool. Reduce that down and just hand brush along the edge. While doing it on a black background, you can kind of see what the art is really looking like. If you do it on a white background, this blends in right here and you can't see it that much. So that's why I like to put it on a black background first, and I can really get a good look at what I've got. Now, the eraser tool, as you see, is set on brush, but it's a hard brush. So I can feather this a little bit by putting it on, just like a paintbrush, but I'm erasing. Put it on the airbrush, and that'll be a little softer along that edge, and it looks more natural. So in the channel, I was showing you how to make that sharp and crisp, and here I'm showing you how to make that just a little soft edged, so it looks a little bit more natural. This kind of fades into the background versus a hard, sharp cut. And that's what I mean by looking natural. You know, if you cut it hard and you use the pen tool has no fade to it, no soft edge. So it doesn't look as natural. But you can change your brushes to anything, your eraser brush to anything that similar to what you can paint with. Pen tool, the airbrush tool, and so on. So that there against the black background looks a little bit more natural. And then here I'm going to eat away at this a little softer. Same for this up here. And I'm just, with the black background, I'm eating away and kind of correcting that artwork. So I can continue to do that same thing, manually coming around here and airbrushing this out, then leaving just red hair. But that's eating away at the hair. So eventually this girl may look at this photo and say, I didn't have a haircut like that. So one other method gets a little, when you're dealing with color changes, especially from this green to this red hair, gets a little more challenging. So I'm going to put white in the background and then see what color range does. I may end up having to just lock it and paint in an actual color like this. So I'll use the eye tool, eyedropper, click option, click on a color area to reference the color. You see how that changes as I go. And then under my brush tool with the soft fuzzy brush, I can go to my brush color mode and go down to color. And what I'm going to do is, what that does is it replaces the color. So I'm painting with this referenced red color here and just leaving this color in here. And how I'm doing that is by I'm locking this layer. See the little lock icon? That locks it when it's unlocked right now, and I paint. So I'm just painting color anywhere on that layer. And that's not good. You see how that updated? It shows you the little icon. And the more you paint on that, the icon updates. It shows you that preview. You're painting on this layer. But if you lock it, then it locks every little pixel in there, and you're only painting on the color data. So that's a method. So there's multiple ways of doing this. And you'll see what I mean when I take it off of the white background. Now it's just adding brown back there. So I am removing that green, but you see I still have that white halo. So it's painting my white halo around there also. And I don't necessarily like that much. So going back to this, it looks like I'll have to eat away at this soft edge on the artwork a little bit more with the eraser tool, the soft edge airbrush. By doing this manually, you do get a little bit more of that organic feel to it. So I'm eating away manually at that white halo. There's some other tricks you can do too, because you can choose a brush that is a little bit more fluent looking, natural looking. I don't know what I'd try here, but something like this, and taking the opacity down very low. You see how it starts to build up? That's another way of using your brushes to eat away. Yeah, see, looks like there's not a lot there, but there is. There's a little bit of glow there yet. Hopefully we'll try and get it to where it looks like, I'm going to change that brush again, to where it looks like she has hair that's kind of undefined, softly blowing in the wind. I'm on the brush tool. I need the eraser tool. I'm removing that halo, using the eraser tool, just eating away at the edge of that softly. A little bit at a time. So here it gets a little tricky, where the skin meets the hair, because I'd have to reduce down and come in and get this nice and sharp along the edge, but then that leaves me a sharp edge on my selection. So what I can do is use the pen tool to make a selection, come up here and make that curve, come over to the other side and make that curve of that cheek, kind of just split the difference in the middle there. So I'm not worried really what this looks like out here, but I am about this area and this area. So with that selection, now I'm going to hold down my Option and Command or Control key, click on that, actually just the which one is it? That's the one. So when you have your path activated, go to the little selection tool icon and hold down the Option key while you click on it. That brings up this other window here, and you can feather that selection. So this would be a hard edge selection, as you see. And if I paint on this with the airbrush tool, paint inside, oh, the opacity is really down. Paint inside, you can see how hard that selection is. But if I click on here, hold down the Option key and click on that, give my options in the window, I can make this a new selection and feather the edge a little bit. So let's say, I don't know, 2 pixels, 3 pixels. That, how much you do, defines how sharp this is. And now you can see it's fuzzier edged. So the reason I'm doing that is with this selection, I can inverse that selection and just eat away with the eraser tool at this corner. I'll hide this selection so you can see it better. But I can eat away at this corner without, and keeping this cheek soft, but without eating away too much at the face. And actually that's a rounded edge right there, a little bit more than I wanted. So I'm going to do that again. Because this is a low resolution file, you don't need that many pixels to make it fuzzy. So let's try 1. Reverse the selection, hide it, eat away at it. Yeah. I can airbrush a little bit up into there. You see how that's still following that selection and eating away at it. I can let a little bit of the shirt show through, like her cheek is coming up underneath the hair. And then come out here and just hit it a couple times with the airbrush eraser tool. Alright, so what I've done there is I've taken off that that halo glow that you get from selections and made that a little fuzzier. Do the same over here. Keeping that soft. See how it eats away at it a little bit. Removing it out into the white or lighter area colors so that I'm just dealing with or having left only actual color fading to the background. Now I can make this a little bit more natural looking forcefully by using my little smudge tool here and smudging in smaller percentages. You need to, let me see if I can show you anywhere. You can start to see the smudge there, but that's because of the low percentage. If I had it high, you can see great exaggerations of that. Now you can see I'm making like a zigzag eyebrow. So just test it out, try a few little things, and you can reduce the size of your brush and just throw out some little wispy edges. You're pulling color out, and the more you increase that, the more you can pull. This kind of makes your outer edge a little bit more irregular, and also therefore a little more natural. It's dragging and smudging, creating kind of like a soft edge, but not too soft. Because this is really fading out this way. You know, you can see a little bit of hair strands. I'm pulling from solid to where it's like half and half, and then pulling that out, creating that natural soft hair look. That's how I would handle it anyway. A couple hair strands just loosely placed, increase the strength of that pull. This hair might, you know, try and follow the direction of the hair flow. You can work on one area, drag one little strand out minutely. This might be a little much for some people. They don't want to mess with that stuff. You see how the hair is flowing out and down? I'll drag the same way out this way. It just causes the hair to look a little bit more natural. So I'm putting in, first ate away the halo, now I'm putting back in some natural flow to it. Might be a little too much for you all. I understand if you're just getting into this. This is like, just it's a video, so you can scroll back and watch certain areas again. Do the reverse also, like I'm doing right here, because that kind of, you know, brings in the hair, brings out the hair, brings in the hair, brings out the hair, and you're just smudging around. And that's literally what you're doing here in this case, is just smudging around pixels. And by doing this, you're building a much more natural flow to the hair. You can even kind of wing it around, pull out a little straggler. There you go. Then when you see that on the background, that's too much on the straggler. You could always undo that. Command Z, 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 and then just leave it like that and come back in and do your other remaining. See how this hair is flowing? Follow that hair flow. Let it flow. There you go. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Now, lock that and remove some of that gray by painting with your brush tool, referencing the color, put the color on color, the color mode of the brush, and airbrush that in. Now you're kind of painting with gold, or red in this case, along the outer edge. Just removing some of that fringed green that was in there. All red. Now, you know, on a photo like this, you can then, you know, also take that smudge tool and clean up some areas, or you can use the blur tool and clean up some pixels around the face, make it softer, a little bit softer. Down here there's going to be some, because of the low resolution JPEG, there'll be some junk debris artifacts in the color. When you go to channels and you look at the channel individually, you'll see it's mostly on this red channel, so you can leave the red channel activated and kind of come in here and clean this up a little bit. You could use the rubber stamp tool if you want. Decrease the opacity so it's not so abrupt. Reference that area, come in here with the brush tool, making sure your brush tool is on a soft fuzzy edge on the rubber stamp tool, and you can kind of cover that pixelated junk up, and it's essentially correcting this color area for you. And you combine them, the channels again, and you see that was corrected that little shadow area there. Also use you know, the rubber stamp tool, reference an area on the outside, and you can kind of softly correct blemishes. Let's say, oh, I only had the right channel activated. Softly correct blemishes. Might be a little acne here, can decrease that. There's also the healing brush. Where is it at? Right there. Little band-aid looking thing. And you can run that over certain areas. Choose a soft brush. On your hardness, turn that hardness down to something really soft, and then just run it over top of an area that you think has a little blemish to it. Reduce the size of the brush down, remove the blemish, and what it's doing is referencing color around it. That's starting to look good. You can go back and use the blur tool around the neck, make that a little smoother. Well, that's the gist of it. That I can get rid of. That's kind of a good mask, my starting point. But I would save this, I don't know, somewhere to the desktop. And just call it hair cleanup layer. can delete this, send that to your customer, and or use it on your image. Save this as a PNG. You see it has a soft fuzzy background here, and print that on background. There you go. A little long on the tutorial there, but hope that helps. There's a lot of different areas that we covered on that. Again, there's other ways to make selections. There's selection tools specifically for erasing backgrounds and stuff like that in Photoshop. But those are other stories, other tutorials. But so I would delete these and then save that as a copy PNG so that I have a transparent background. No background. PNG. There you go. That's the end.